Hi, we're into class 6 here on Resolve Advanced. Resolve 11. I'm just using the tangent center element panel here, which you can do. You don't have to have the full panel. So I'm just using the middle one at the moment. I'm obviously not using it so much because obviously for you guys to see what I do, it's easier if you see me using with the GUI, using the mouse rather than use the panel. But occasionally I will reach to this, maybe reset and do some things. This is a really good option. If you don't have the bucks to buy the bigger element, and we'll look at that when we talk about panels in a later class, just getting this center one, because you can get started with this, and if you feel you want the other knobs, bells and whistles, you can always upgrade to it, but it's a really good place to get going. And really, I say it's a lot. The money are these 6 controls, really. This just makes you so much more, you're focusing on that, you're not looking at the GUI, and it's just a lot more, gives you a lot more freedom, I think. I mean, that's my take on it anyway. So just having this is really cool. I'm going to talk a little bit about some raw files, and then we're going to go into and do some matching and how we do some matching. So let's just back out of here and we'll go and look for some raws. Remove all these guys, remove all clips in bin, and we've got a folder here called raw, and in that we have a number of options. We're just going to drag them all in. They're all different sizes, as you can see. Yeah? Different sizes, different codecs. Let's put some others in there. If I go to my primary, and we've worked on that earlier, and see what we've got in there. We've got this shot in here, standard 1920 1080. Can move that in. So we've got a 1920 by 1080. And in my looks, I think I might even have an SD. There we go. 720 by 576. Pop that in. So we're populating our timeline with all different types of media, codecs, and frame rates. When we work it though, we want to work in a 1920 by 1080 raster, which is stipulated in here, and that's what I've set this to. As I said earlier, you know, probably 75%, 80% of work done has been rendered or worked at 1920 by 1080. You want to set that to what you typically are going to finish on. Not always, because sometimes we may want to render higher than HD, maybe for visual effects. Maybe there's a 4K, Ultra 4K delivery component. A lot of the problems we have is that we can't see it because we don't all have 4K monitors. Do we have the systems to play 4K? Do we have them to play raw files 4K with color corrections? No. Bigger files are a lot more taxing on our GPUs, on our computers. I think HD is okay, works fine, most systems, it's good. Even if you want to end up with SD, then we nearly all work in HD. We make a nice HD master, and then we down convert that and deliver that. If you need 4K, it's not twice as big as HD or 2K. It's 4 times as big. So it's a lot bigger. So if we are working in this 1920 1080, and we have selected down here in input scaling, scale entire image to fit. This is the default. I haven't changed anything here. Let's see what happens when we make a timeline. Select all these guys now. I do like this feature. It's a new feature. I don't even have to touch the edit page now. Create timeline using selected clips. Create there. Come out to here. And let's ignore what that one is in there. There we go. So we have a number of different. This one looks like we've not got anything there, so I'm not sure what that is. Come across to here. We'll see what that is. We can just open this up and we can read off the bottom. Let's just have a little investigation and see why that one's not coming in. Maybe it's not even reading, may not even be in my timeline. So that's a red file, CO32. Turn this on here. There we go. Whatever that is. So it's not giving me a cross, it's just saying that there's just nothing there in that clip. Let's remove that. Go back up to here and we can look. There, that's it. It's almost like a rogue black file has got in my storage. Didn't like how I brought it down with me. That's all right, get rid of that. We can just now edit that. See now what's happened? Now I've removed that, which is like just rendered black. It was like a black R3D or something. Now it's saying to me there's nothing in the pool. That's why it's going red. Like this. So I can now just shift, delete. We'll close up that gap and that's gone. Let's have a look and see what else we've got in here. This is an ARRI RAW. Now, if you don't have this underneath, a really useful feature, double click underneath the thumbnail and it tells you what codec you're working on. I use this all the time. Just to confirm, especially if I'm swapping out shots and I'm maybe adding some visual effects shots or things, I find that really useful. Red, DNG, ARRI. Now, ASUS. I don't know the last time I actually graded a job that was shot on one camera. There's always something different, or a B camera, sometimes a C camera, especially if you're working on docos and things. Granted, not everyone's working with RAW files all the time. Some people are just working with, say, ARRI Alexa ProRes, Log C, and they're happy with that. That's this. Yeah, could be that. The point I wanted to make about all the different resolutions, that's the standard def, they're all trying to scale themselves into a 1920 1080 raster. So I don't have to worry that that is HDRX Epic, I think that is, 5K, Sony f55 RAW. The sizing and the composition is correct. Blackmagic Pocket Camera, correct. DNG, Blackmagic, Red, and we can tell their sizing, or we can get their information from here. Clip. 5K. DNG, 2.4, 1920, 2.8. So we don't have to worry about that. But if you want to have a little look and see what the difference is doing here, if you went center crop, no resizing here in our input scaling, do that just to have a look. Then what happens is that we can see now we are only seeing the 1920 cutout of that. So we're not seeing the whole image. We're only seeing 1920 1080 of it. There, because that's 5K, the monitor is only showing us, again, the 1920 1080 component, because that's what we've chosen to work in. There. Okay. What happens when we go to the SD shot? What do you think is going to happen here? Yes, it's small, isn't it? It's tiny. This is cool because it doesn't mean we don't have to worry about. A lot of people ask me, well, because it's 4K, do you have to frame it all down? And when you've done that, are you losing all the quality? No, we'll still get a full debayer on it, except we'll be using a 1920 1080 size. So we've still got quality as long as we render at full quality. So let's turn that back up. I just thought I wanted to point out that is where you can change that sizing. So that's useful to know that is where that's happening. Basically, leave that there, scale entire image to fit. What about this one while we're here? How do we fix that? Now, we could manually go through and we could obviously change the aspect of this, but if we want to do this properly, and we could have a number of these clips in our timeline. This is like anamorphic SD, PAL. We come out to here and we click on it, right click, clip attributes, and we've got in here pixel aspect ratio. If we scroll down, PAL 16:9. like that, instead of being PAL SD, there. Let's fix that one. You do the same with an anamorphic shot. So if you had anamorphic, I'm not sure I've got any in here, you would do the same thing. You'd have to go through and you'd have to change the pixel aspect ratio of it to make it work. We're seeing quite a lot of anamorphic lenses now on digital cameras. So what do we need to do? When we're in RAW, we can go through here and we can select, right, I know I've got Arri Alexa. I can decode at full res, play quality, I can drop down. There. You could drop this down as well, but you'd obviously have to remember to make those changes at the end, or as you render. So that will do that. We can leave our Arri Alexa there at quarter res. Our red, we could have at half res probably. Now the difference between the decode and the play quality are the same. Let's leave that up at full res. And our play quality are turned down to 1/8, just so we can see, hopefully see it change. So what that means, when you're playing, it will play at 1/8, so it moves. 1/8 of the size, won't shrink it or anything, it will just debayer it differently and the quality will be a lot less. But I just want to prove to you that when you hit stop, it jumps back up to full res. The black magic we've got in there as well. We could turn that to do the same. We have decode quality and play quality. We can also go into here and adjust from project. That means every cinema DNG or Blackmagic clip that we use can be viewed in this color space, BMD film, and not defaulting to Rec 709. So you set that for the whole project. That's that one. Apply that. Come in here. Lastly, we've got some Sony in there, so we'll do the same thing. Project. That defaults to 709, and we'll set that to S-Gamma 3. And the gamma we'll put to S-Log 3. This is for the Sony f55, f65, when you're dealing with those raw files. So you can set as many as you want. Now we can see that the profiles have changed slightly in that we are now changed them. The DNG is now looking like BMD film. It's not looking like, actually my thumbnail there still showing me the Rec 709 version that it came in. The red is set to project. And let's see when I play that. Yes, look at the quality there. Just make that bigger, you should be able to see. If I just put that one into loop there. See the jaggies there on her hair as I stop, resolution all jumps up. You remember we do a lot of grading on still frame. Now I will recommend you ever work at 1/8. If you can work at quarter res, good. Obviously the faster machine you've got now, you can get the machine to debayer, obviously on the GPU. So in here, use GPU for red debayer. So if you have a new Mac or you have an expansion chassis, you have very fast cards, you don't necessarily need the red rocket card. Useful again. Finally, red are starting to come, you'll be a little bit open and not make it so hard sometimes to work with the files. Red don't give us any LUTs or anything here. Their color science or technology, as they call it, is done in here. So you select. If you'd want to work in Rec 709, you turn it all to Rec 709. Like that. Yeah, you can do. Most people, though, dealing with red would probably go with either the camera metadata or something like Red Color 3 for their color space. Red Gamma 4 now. Let's see what that does. That's changed very slightly. And you can start working here. Alternatively, if it's a film project or you want to have something that really emulates, say, a log C from an Alexa or a BMD film, go into your gamma curve and use in there red log film. Like that. And that will just open up, give you a little bit more latitude. Means we can see all the black there through her skirt a little bit easier. And if we look here, that's our difference at red log film. Come back in, there's red gamma 4, red gamma 3. It's not clipping anything, and the reason they change this is they're always trying to get a sort of a happy medium between something that looks good for editing, something that looks good on set, and something that will still work for grading and VFX. And that, I think, is what they're looking for. So I've done both ways. Fine to grade this way and start grading this way. You know, some people will make this and then they will use another LUT to bring this back in. Simple terms, you know, do as little as you need to do, I would say. You know, if it's shot, camera metadata, it looks good, you're not clipping out information, camera metadata is going to be reasonably close to what the guys want and what they've seen. Sometimes if you make it all red log film and say it's for commercial or it's for doco, you could be adding a lot more work for yourself when you don't need to, and you end up grading it back to where it was when it looked like red log 3 or red color 3. Red gamma 3. That's red, so they give you plenty of options, and you can obviously come in here as well because we're set to clip, and we can adjust things like ISO. All right? The camera was at 800. There, it's telling you what the camera was at. So always keep an eye on what the camera is, because sometimes when you go from camera metadata and you go into clip, it can change your ISO for you, and the ISO can change and not all be the same as it was from camera metadata. So these are useful to see what the camera was actually set at, because you know, that's giving you a good indication of what the DP was intending as well. As to how often you do actually change these things and can you actually pull a little bit more information back, very rarely I can say that I've ever gone in to these files and actually got something more detailed back. Because there's a point where actually the sensor is just maxed out and there's just no more information. It just is overexposed. But sometimes you'd be thinking, well, it's a raw file. I should be going and pull some more information back. And you go in, try the exposure, brightness, all of these controls, and you don't actually get any more. Though, all I suggest you, I would go in and just, you know, adjust these. Have a little look what they do. See how they can change the image. Ones I would change, if the color temperature is wrong, I would try and adjust that here. I would sometimes use a saturation here as well. You've been given a raw file. That means, to me, don't just ignore it and just carry on grading. Look to see if there is a slight issue, it was dark, or we could take the ISO up. Let's do that. Now, Blackmagic give us these new controls in here, where off the raw file you can lift things slightly, just off the raw file, not in DaVinci. One I like in here, there is a color boost, which is going to put some color boost just into the lowly saturated areas. And there is a mid-tone detail. Now I quite like this one as well, and this is just sharpening up and just crisping up the mids. Because I always feel it just needs a little bit more, like when I was looking at the shot of the dog, just sharpening her up slightly. She came from the pocket and she's not raw, she's ProRes. So again, highlight recovery, in theory, if you turn that on, should be able to just get you a tiny little bit more. Again, I must admit, and I'm not doing a huge amount of jobs, sometimes I'll get good result, other times I've not. I've turned it on and I can't see it's pulling me any more information, and it might be going against me. So again, turn that on, but that's what that's trying to do in there. There's our ARRI. ARRI give you a few less than red to adjust. There's more in this version now. So you still have colour temperature in there that you can play with and adjust. You have these controls as well, your lift, gain, contrast, all on the raw file. So this is standard DaVinci YRGB. Turn this into DaVinci ACES, and then in lookup tables, we'll leave that no IDT at the time because we can change these on individual basis anyway. You do get a lot of options there, so if you had a whole project from one camera, you could select them all there. We'll leave that there. And ACES out, Rec 709 is what I've got here. It's what I want to work in for this job, so I'll apply that. And close that guy down. And if we come here, and I just reset all of this, we can see that we don't have any information out there. Now this guy, I'm set to none. So the same as the project for my IDT, because I don't know of what this is. All right, so this is an EXR, so it's already been linearized somewhere. And I can bring back information like this. Now this will have been through a VFX pipe somehow. It's not a camera original. But you can see how much information I can pull, so if I disable that, like that. So that's a huge amount. So you're able to work with a lot more latitude in ACES, and also in working in ACES, if everybody's working in ACES on another color corrector, you can make LUTs there. You can turn your IDT to be the same camera in Resolve. It should look the same as, say, it did in Speed Grade. Apply the same LUT. So, and then going out again, if we're all a known color space of ACES, it's easiest to go from a DCP to a Rec 709, and we're really making one super master. That's how that's designed to work. We can look at some of these others in here. So if we go to the DNG RAW, check our RAW settings. We're set to BMD film. I've done nothing here. I've done no grading. The grade doesn't look right because obviously we're in ACES, and we're currently set to no input device transform is what we were using on this EXR clip. But if I then right click and say for this, just for this ACES clip, I want to use BMD film, there. That puts that into BMD film. If you need to update the thumbnails, right click, update thumbnails, like that. Now we are grading in ACES. Let's take it out of ACES because everything will be strange from what I do from then on in. If I go here again, master project settings, out of ACES, back to DaVinci color space, there. And we look at this red HDRX clip. I get quite a lot of questions on HDRX. It's designed by Red, and when you shoot, you put it into HDRX mode, and it actually shoots two exposures at the same time into the same file. So when you actually look at it, it doesn't actually tell, it doesn't appear as two clips. It does actually have a little flag somewhere that says high dynamic range on it. It's not always obvious though to us that it is. Yeah. So we need to, maybe if I do that there, no, it just flags it as red. Let's scroll across, see if we got any more information. There we go. HDRX in there. So the X means it's a high dynamic range clip. A few things we can do with it in the grading. We can go to our RAW here, put it into clip mode, and you have blend. Magic Motion does the best job of blending the highlight exposure, which is the very quick exposure, which should capture all of the bright information there, and the normal exposure, which should be him. And if you use the blend, you can go between the two and somewhere you will get something that mixes between the two exposures. Say something like that. Now normally you'd make a slightly flatter image, Problem with this being is, as we've now mixed the two, I could then take that and grade that. But if we look at that, look at his ear. Why is that? That's because of the movement. There's two exposures. So when it moves, we get a double image. There's not too much you can do about that because he's moving around. Okay, if he wasn't, and he was just sitting in the chair there as a talking head, I could blend that together. I've got information in the sky. I could key a little bit of blue off it and work with it. But as soon as he moves, I'm in trouble. Now, you can do this a little bit in Resolve as well. So take that magic motion to none. And what you can do is, just on that first node there, just see whether we can maybe just grade a little bit more information down. I'll just bring my scopes back in just to here. So you can see we're probably fully maxed out here on the sensor there on that exposure. Even just bringing my flat down and things doesn't help me too much. So what I need to do is make a layer, Option L, and right click on the grey background here and add a source. And it gives me another input, little box here. Select, left click to select the link and delete that. Then drag that from here into there. Because it's a layer has priority. Whatever comes in on the bottom input will override the top. So all we are now seeing is that quick exposure. We can see some blue sky, but we're not seeing so much in him. We come down to here, go onto the key here, looks like the key to the door, your front door, and in your gain, slightly bring that down, so going to negative, and you bring back a mix between the really great sky and detail in him. Bad news is, you still have the problem with the double image. It's whether you do it DaVinci, whether you do it in Magic Motion, Red's answer. Of course, you could key it a bit more, which is the advantage of doing it here. It takes a lot of work because there comes a time where you're just trying to put too much dynamic range into what we could see on this TV, into our normal dynamic range, our viewing dynamic range. You can't do it. You can't fit all those stops, or 16 stops, as they say, into something we can see like on this set here. So it doesn't work, and when you do it, it just looks wrong. It's very hard to key. So HDRX, great if it's a locked off shot and it doesn't move too much. If it does, then really you're in trouble a little bit. So thanks very much for looking at the lesson on raw files. There are lots of them out there. It's sometimes hard getting your hands on them to play with, but if you can do, just get in there, open them up, just explore. The more you learn about a codec and what it's like, its pros and cons, how big it's going to be to grade. You know, you take on an ASUS project, there's going to be a little bit of head scratching there if you're going down that road. As you saw just there in turning device transforms and things, but in version 11 they're certainly adding more. They're keeping up pace with what ASUS committee's doing, so you know, it's interesting times. All right, thanks for watching.